Open tabs, margin notes, highlighter, bleed through quotes. Research mind, steady eye, patterns only she can note. I-90 fog, whispering under wheels, skyline, afterglow. 2 states, packed rooms, quiet minds that know. No sign needed out front. They circle to her voice. Questions rise before she starts. Curiosity by choice. She pivots mid-lecture, checks who's leaning in close. Say the part you skip out loud, that's where the learning goes. Heads home with the speakers up, Biggie in the background. Monster mapping theories while the city slows down. She teaches the why behind the crime, the hurt behind the face. Philly in her backbone, psychology in her grace. Don't let the hype fool you, she stands 10 stories tall. She don't just teach the lesson, she teaches you through it all. Late nights with case files open, notes in the margin glow. She's showing you your story's roots, so you can choose where to go. Yeah. Biggie quotes inside the slides, right next to coping skills. Spread love between the lines of how a nervous system feels. Long days, quiet grit, humor in the punchlines. You are more than this moment. Written 10 times, old assessments in a folder, ink dust on the sleeve. She can map anxious attachment before you know you grieve. 1 foot in Jersey lecture halls, 1 on the Philly street. Home is where she learned to fight, classes where we don't repeat. Grown kids texting check-ins, pride she doesn't post. She teaches minds all day, then goes in mother's most. Case files, true crime, mind behind the scenes. She doesn't tell you what they did, she shows you what it means. Your story is not your diagnosis. You are allowed to rewrite it.
Hi guys. I'm like, why do I feel so like prepared or something? Like something's not right. Sure enough, I didn't have my microphone. You know, like God forbid all the things were together all at the right time. And I have a candle over here that caught something on fire. What's happening? Casey starting out with the happy poop. Hey Case, your daughter's going to keep you up all night tonight. My kids just came home and decided just to be loud, and my husband has to be up early. Like, they have no set. Like, do your kids do that? It's like 11 o'clock at night and you're bringing friends home now? For what? I don't understand. It's fine, but like, shut your door. I'm live. No, I'm kidding. I'm worried about my husband. I don't care about, not that I don't care about me, you know what I mean. Oh, truth exposed. Just put something in Discord. Does she know that I'm live? Hey guys, who's here? Let's see who came to support so far tonight. We have Andrea. Andrea is off today, you guys, so Andrea should be in the house. If Andrea is not in the house, hopefully she gets a notification and she gets her ass back over into the house again, because we want Andrea here. Okay, I'm trying to take the things off my head. There we go. Much better. Who else do we have? Harlot's in the house. Lucy Day is in the house tonight. Hey Lucy, Casey. I almost said Casey Kasem's. Do you guys remember Casey Kasem's? That show with the music in the morning when we only had like 5 channels. Do you guys remember that? Seriously, we had like 5 channels. We had 3, 6, what was it? We had like 3, 6, 10, 17, 29, and 57. 6 channels. That's what we had. And channel 12, which you didn't really watch. That was like the educational channel. I used to watch it because they used to have surgeries and stuff. Thank you, Harlot, for putting that in Discord. Harlot's here, the lovely Harlot. We also have, who do we have? The Pretend Judge is here. Hi, Pretend Judge. Come on in. Simply Investigating made it. Hey, Simply Investigating, how are you? Heidi's in the house. Hey, Heidi's here. Heidi's here. She said yes. Casey said she remembers Casey Kasem's. I feel so old. Casey Kasem's. All right. Simply Investigating says the stations had the best movies and shows, though. They did. They definitely did. So it's so good to see you guys here tonight. Today, you guys, oh my gosh, Birdie's in the house. Hey, Birdie, come on in. How you doing? You've been wondering about, okay, so there you go. That's between chat. I love that. I love that you guys ask how each other are and stuff. That's just so amazing to me. Birdie. Thank you, Birdie. That was so very generous. I appreciate you. Thank you. So tonight I planned where we are going to, hold on, let me fix this because that's not what I want up. I'm trying to get all of my things together because, God forbid. Oh, I know why. Oh my God. Straight A stupid. Alright, now we're good. Now we're together, you guys. So I put together a little reaction, I guess, to today's testimony. You guys, was anybody else, and I mean no disrespect, I really need to know if anybody else felt like they needed anxiety medicine for that first witness. Oh my gosh. He refused to answer the questions. Did anybody else feel that? I felt like he refused to answer the questions. The judge eventually was like, well, obviously he didn't say cuz, but in my head he said, cuz, what are you doing? Like, come on. So it was hard to watch at some points, in my opinion. I really felt that way. Did anybody else feel that way? I was like, what is happening? I love Dr. Vona. She's so down to earth. I missed court today, so I look forward to your take. Oh, well, let me tell you something, pretend judge. You saved yourself anxiety, in my opinion, okay? I was like, Harlot gets bad vibes. Did anybody hear when they were like, he goes, only because they did it to his, to the defense's, one of the defense's people, but he goes, how much do you make? I was dying. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, that was the thing today. And then, oh my God, there was just a few things. So let me just get into it real quick. So this is what we're going to do. I put together, instead of just talking like I did last night, because last night I did have things to show, but I wound up just talking. So tonight I'm going to do a better job of talk and then show the clip of what it is that I'm talking about, just so that we have a little bit more than just me talking, right? And of course, like I always say, if there's a comment or a question that anybody has, in the chat, just put some emojis before, after, like a few of them, so that it catches my attention and so that I know. And even if it's just something you want me to highlight to chat, you know what I mean? That way I don't get stuck with in between, like, you know, inner group chats where you guys are talking to each other, which is amazing. I love that. So thank you. But today's one of those trial days, you guys, where if you only watch 10 seconds on like social media clips, like if you watch shorts and stuff like that, you could come away with almost any conclusion you wanted. So tonight, I want to do the opposite. I want to slow down, separate the testimony from court TV commentary, and look at what the Commonwealth's rebuttal experts actually said. I called them the commentary people, but what I meant was, you know how you have like the commentary in between? I was just saying I separated all that, but I guess I didn't really have to say all of that. Whatever. So what we're going to do is look at, there was really only 2 witnesses today, right? So if you did miss today, it wasn't, you know, you missed 2 witnesses. So there you go. So first there was Dr. Abram Mack, who finished his testimony by Zoom. So we already saw this guy. And I'm going to say this carefully. The substance matters more than the style, but the style, in my opinion, matters when you're trying to communicate science to a jury. So his cross-examination was combative. This is all just my opinion. It was combative, repetitive, and at points almost impossible to listen to because the attorney and the witness kept fighting over wordings of the questions. He kept saying, well, I can't answer it. I can't answer that like that. Or, he would ask another question and he would be like, well, you guys, I'm going to show you an example. It was like hard to watch at times, in my opinion. But I found myself wanting to reach through the screen and be like, answer the question that you're being asked. You know what I mean? And even the judge jumps in at some point and tells them, just answer the questions. And if on redirect, they want to ask or elaborate in any way, they will. But it was, oh my God. So the judge eventually does say that. Then Dr. Kirk Heilbrun took the stand. He was a completely different presentation, in my opinion. He was a forensic psychologist. He was very experienced in forensic assessment, and he explicitly discussed retention bias and confirmation bias. He also made a diagnosis that mattered enormously. He diagnoses bipolar II disorder. So let me repeat that. A Commonwealth rebuttal expert diagnosed bipolar II disorder. I think this is important because if you look in the research, the link between bipolar II disorder and postpartum psychosis is there. So, that was just an important part of the testimony, again, just in my opinion. So Dr. Mack did not come up with that same diagnosis. They actually, I forget which one it was, but I believe it was Dr. Kirk Heilbrun is the one that lets us know. He actually teaches in Philadelphia. So I was like, oh, I'm all ears. But, I was listening to his testimony, but I was able to follow him a lot more because he was answering the questions. I believe he was the one that also tells us that they came up with a different diagnosis, that they didn't agree on a diagnosis. So if you came in today thinking that the prosecution's rebuttal was going to be, she never was seriously mental ill, that's not what happened today. So, the rebuttal witnesses, there's a witness that both of them tell us that she was suffering. So, even from the one that we didn't get a whole lot from. So the real fight is narrower and harder. In my opinion, serious mental illness may be present, but was Lindsay Clancy legally criminally responsible on January 24th, 2023? And that's where Heilbrun's testimony gets very important. So before, we show anything, what question matters to you guys most? Diagnosis, whether the voices were real or whether she understood right from wrong. So this is what you're going to put in chat. Either put diagnosis, the voices, or wrongfulness. So again, which matters most to you? Her diagnosis, whether she heard voices. So you could put diagnosis, voices, or did she understand the wrongfulness? So just put wrongfulness. So did she understand right from wrong? Is that one? So diagnosis, voices, or wrongfulness. Let me know what you guys think is the most important. Then we have, do I dare say mortal, says Matt. Matt, oh my God. I was like, ooh, I definitely, just my opinion, think that, they have somebody watching The Lawyer, I don't know if you guys, I love that channel but I felt like today, as soon as that happened, he called for a mistrial. So I thought that was interesting. Why does she have to scream? I don't understand. Jay, I love you, but you can hear you. I said I love you, but you can hear you right through it. I can hear everything you're saying. I just want to tell you in case you're saying something that you don't want everybody to hear. You guys, we're going to have Gianna come host again. That would be fun. Casey says, my daughter is currently singing I Wanna Swing from the chandelier. Full volume. Oh my God, that is so funny. That's cute. Hi, girlfriend. There you go. I saw you on Discord. I was like, what is happening? Somebody tell truth that we're live. Let's see. Yes. Okay, so let's see what Peter Trigos, that's his name. Yes, that's right, Harlot. He said he would have called for a mistrial the first time they did it to Patrick's mom. Her lawyers are going to have a field day on appeal if she gets convicted. I believe that too. And I think now that this happened again, like I felt like that was like really bad. Even though it wasn't the prosecution this time that like says it, it still, in my opinion, opened it up again for them to be like, look, the first time I didn't, do anything. I let it go, but it's happening again. So I feel like because it happens the second time, that if they did use it on some sort of appeal, that they could also get that first time introduced now, because they could say, this was the second time it had happened. So I just thought that was like, whoa. I don't know. I am thinking the prosecution tells, the witness not to say anything related to Catholic anything. I don't know. So do you want to mistrial so they retry the case and come at it at a different... So this is the thing, Matt. I agree with you. So I think the very first time, in my opinion, the defense attorney didn't call for a mistrial just for that reason. He doesn't want another trial, because then they get a second bite at the apple, and almost like as if they maybe, and I'm not saying this to be true, I'm thinking this, could the prosecution have said that on purpose, knowing that it could cause a mistrial? So with that being said, I think that first time, him not wanting to call a mistrial was strategic, but this second time, it's like, all right, come on now, like this is enough. You know what I mean? So, all right, so let me show you guys something real quick. So let me go to the video, and I have to attach it real quick, but I'm gonna go to a clip. It's only about a minute long. Let me share.
And she was not, so she had a 0 on that.
There we go. It wasn't pausing for a second. All right, here we go. Share. And I know to do all the mute things. All right. And I have to go to 102. I have everything mapped out for us, you guys. Here we go. So we're going to listen to this for a minute. And I'm going to put this on mute so that we don't have any echoing. So fingers crossed to everything going good.
Sir, how many times have you testified in courts on the issue of criminal responsibility? So if you estimate 1 or 2 times, would this be your 3rd time?
By that estimation, yes.
Okay, so it's not by my estimation, though, it's by your estimation, and you would know better than me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the 3rd time in your career that you've testified on a criminal trial on the issue of lack of criminal responsibility. Is that correct?
I know there are other times that I've created opinions.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm not sure how many.
I'm just asking about criminal responsibility. That's it.
I'm talking about criminal responsibility. And I know there are other times I've created opinions, but I'm not sure that I've testified about them in the courtroom.
So my question was simply, how many times have you testified in court on criminal cases regarding the issue of lack of criminal responsibility, and this would be your 3rd time, right?
That is my recollection.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, you guys, like, are you kidding me? Did that not drive you crazy? He asks a question, and it was like pulling teeth, in my opinion, right? So in this legitimate cross-examination, right, that we see here, this is cross-examination. So this is the prosecution's witness. So being a physician or a psychiatrist, this guy's a psychiatrist, and being an experienced criminal forensic witness are not identical skill sets, clearly, in my opinion. So the jury can consider expertise, but this is only his third time. This doesn't by itself invalidate his opinion. The better question here would be is whether his method is sound and whether the reasoning holds up under pressure, which I don't know if it does. What bothered me was how quickly the testimony became a struggle over control. So Mack often wanted to qualify or reframe. Reddington wanted yes or no answers. He wasn't getting that in my, not even in my opinion, he just wasn't getting that. Sometimes the qualification was scientifically fair, but other times it made a simple answer feel like it had to go through customs before we got here. Like, you guys, I was like, what is happening right now? It drove me bananas. So this next part here that I'm going to show you is, this is related to validity, and I'm going to explain all of that to you right after.
Or a psychologist, when you say that's of interest, that's something that can be the test result that a jury could look at, right?
Well, I'm not sure if there's a test that specifically states a person is lying.
No. You ever heard of the MMPI?
I have.
Okay. You ever heard of the K scale?
Yes.
What is that?
Well, the K scale is among the internal validity scales of the MMPI. The MMPI is an assessment of the individual's personality.
Okay. So let's focus on the K scale, sir. When you say that let me ask you again, what is your understanding of what the K scale is seeking to find out?
I answer this in the context of the purpose of the MMPI and what the MMPI is designed.
What are you smiling for? This is not funny, sir.
Sustained. Next question. Next question.
MMPI, K scale, focus. What does it mean, sir?
So the MMPI is an assessment of personality, and it is a set of questions that the individual responds to provide the test and to provide the user of the test to understand what is their personality like. The K scale is a set of questions embedded in the MMPI that are designed to see whether or not the individual is exaggerating in their responses, generally speaking.
Okay. Or lying, right? They call the K scale the lie scale, right?
Well, if you're simply referring to your own personality style, the issue is whether or not the answers are reliable or valid. It's not a matter of assessing if the person is lying on the MMPI.
Does the MMPI assess to any degree whether or not a person is lying, in your opinion?
No.
No? So let's stay with Dr. Mack's opinion on the K scale. What would that do? It would determine if somebody is not being truthful about their symptoms or they're exaggerating their symptoms?
Well, the MMPI assesses the individual's personality and their thoughts about themselves. So the question is how to get an accurate reading of the person's personality. If it is the case that they are having a deviation on the K scale, then you might not utilize the MMPI as a whole. But the MMPI is not designed.
So when you say if there's a manipulation of the K scale, what does that mean?
I don't think I used the word manipulation.
What word did you use?
I may have said deviation.
Okay. So if there's a deviation on the K scale, according to you, what does that mean?
It may come to a threshold that the MMPI is not usable. Because the users cannot gather information about the individual's personality as a result.
Because they're lying, and it's not a reliable test, right? That's the ultimate consideration, right?
Right. So it's not saying that the person is lying. It's saying that the test is not reliable.
Because the person who's the subject of the test is not being, let's say, forthright. Is that fair?
I don't know that it's always necessarily a conscious act. An individual, it simply reflects the tendency the individual has when answering the questions that are on that subpart of the test.
Okay, so if somebody has been indicted by the Plymouth County,
you guys, does anybody else, like, do you guys understand? If you turn the resolution down on the video you're playing, it might help it not buffer. I didn't even realize it was buffering. So hold on, let's see. Let's see, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. I thought it was in this part, but I don't see it. Oh, yes, I do. Hold on. Let's see. I did it. Let's see if that works. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that works. So, fingers crossed for that, you guys. But you guys, like, is anybody else crazy? I don't know how much of this buffered. But the point here is that he could not come up with an answer. Like, it was impossible. That was crazy to me. I do want to explain real quick the difference between validity and reliability. So he talks about both validity and reliability here. For anybody who might be joining me for the first time, and I don't know that anyone is, but if you are, I've been teaching psychology at the college and university level for over 20 years, and one of the classes that I happen to teach is research methods. So I very much understand validity, reliability, research. So the difference between the two is, when you're looking at validity, we're looking at, does the measurement that we're using to measure whatever it is we're trying to measure, and I'll give you an example to make it real easy, is what we're using, is the instrument we're using a good measurement of whatever it is we're trying to measure. So for example, let's say you were doing a study where we're looking at a weight loss drug and we're measuring weight. If there's a scale available, I would say a scale is a very valid instrument to measure weight for the study. However, if you went in and they tried to measure your weight with a Phillips screwdriver, that's just not going to make much sense, right? So that might not be a valid one. Or like even a tape measure, right? You could, not a tape measure, I meant a ruler. Even like a ruler, I guess with a tape measure, it depends on what you're, even with a tape measure, that might not be the most valid test for looking to see, you could say, you know, to see if you're measuring your weight. But let's say we were looking at pounds, that wouldn't be very valid. The only valid thing there would be that scale type thing. So that's what validity is. So we're looking, does whatever it is we're trying to measure, whatever we're using, does it actually measure whatever it is we're seeking to get data on? Reliability is, does the test that we're using, is it a reliable, I'm trying to think of another word than reliable, is it a good test to use for this? So this is like saying this test has been used, and I'm giving you an example, I'm making this up, but you know, this test has been used by the United States for, you know, by psychiatrists in the United States for the past 40 years. This has been the top test used. In that sense, it might be a reliable test. So maybe, you know, these doctors are using it as a reliable source to see if somebody has depression, or if somebody has bipolar disorder, or if somebody has so on and so forth. So think of like reliability, think of like a car, right? If you have a brand new car at home and then you have an old car, which one would be more reliable to get you to school? Both cars might get you to school, but let's say you have to take your final exam and you had a choice of which car to take, you might take the more reliable car to get there, if that makes sense. So, and again, these are just examples that I'm trying to give to get you guys, you know, if somebody did need an understanding, because they really don't explain it here. So this is one of the defense's cleaner points that we just watched. Whatever we think of Lindsay's as far as her accounts, the MMPI did not hand the Commonwealth a neat she's malingering result. So that's what they're trying to prove here. Malingering, just so in case anybody, because they bring up malingering again and they don't really explain what, maybe they explained it a few days ago, I'm not sure, but malingering would be like, let's say, I'll give you an example. So think of like linger, right? You're trying to continue something because it's tied to something else. So for example, we see malingering a lot in like car accident litigation, where someone might, maybe they have a broken something, but now it's like 2 years later and they're still going to physical therapy, but like let's say they don't really need it, so they're kind of just holding on to that. Again, think of the word linger, and I'm just using very simplified concepts here. I get a lot more detailed when we're in class, but we're not in class, so I'm trying to just make it a little bit more conversational. But, so Heidi says he irritated me badly. I could hardly listen. Matt says he actually helped the defense due to being inadequate. He didn't say it, but he doesn't believe. Oh my gosh, Matt, yes. He doesn't believe that PPD is a thing. Talk about the insanity, right? So here, you guys, I thought that was a great point, because I caught the same thing and I was like, oh wow, that's like good that the defense picked up on that, because now if I'm the jury, I'm thinking, oh well, even if she did like meet the criteria for PPD, he doesn't believe that it really exists. So that's why he kept saying, I can't answer that. Or, did she have psychosis or postpartum psychosis? And he's like, well, this symptom could be of psychosis, but like he would not say postpartum. So much so that one of the things they argued about was the way that the word postpartum literally just means the period after having a baby. So the defense makes this point to say, if you've had a baby before, the time after you had a baby is considered postpartum, right? Because that's not postpartum depression. So I just felt like the defense like won over the jury in many instances with this particular witness, in my opinion. Let's see. Barbara Hall's here. Hi, Barbara. Barb, what are you making? Let's see. This man needs to take a class with Dr. Mona. That is so funny. That's so funny. Oh, yes. Just me. How you doing? And you're welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. That's so funny, Heidi. Oh yeah, Reddington. It's not a disease. He couldn't get him to say it. He tried so hard. Oh, you guys, it was like pulling teeth. I couldn't believe it, right? I couldn't believe it. So here, it doesn't prove that every symptom reported here is accurate. It didn't even mean that, like you can't just say testing proved that she's faking, because according to this exchange, it didn't. And then keep this point, right? Like think about, not keep this point, but like think about this. Because Heilbrun later explains how broad personality testing can look valid, while a very specific claim symptom, like one unusual hallucination, can still be evaluated separately for credibility. So those ideas are not logically inconsistent. So let's hear this next part that I have for us. It's on 140. Here we go. All right, hopefully what you guys told me to do works. Fingers crossed.
I think he...
At the time of the incident that Lindsay Clancy was suffering from a mental disease, and then you have the opinion, however, she retained substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness or criminality of her conduct. Is that correct? Did I read that right? And the mental disease from which she suffered, in your opinion, was a mood disorder, major depressive episode. Is that right?
Yes.
And you further opined that she may have also had an anxiety disorder that preceded or continued to be present while the major depressive episode proceeded through January 24th. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you're aware that she has been at Tewksbury under a particular diagnosis of a mental disease or defect, right?
Yes.
What is that?
I believe it's adjustment disorder.
Adjustment disorder. Is it not your understanding, sir, that she's suffering, according to diagnosis, bipolar disorder?
I think well, you'd have to show me where you're referring to.
So, did you have a chance to review Dr. Heilbrun's report?
I did.
And do you know what Dr. Heilbrun's opinion was? Of a
In terms
diagnosis?
of...
Diagnosis.
Yes.
What was it?
I think he made a diagnosis of bipolar type 2.
So you have nurse practitioner Gelada, who, as a treating practitioner, indicates that the diagnosis possibly is bipolar disorder, correct?
I don't know that she used those terms, but I know that she was concerned about the possibility.
And you know, because you've obviously read and incorporated into your report Dr. Resnick's opinion, correct?
Correct.
And what is Dr. Resnick's opinion, sir, to your understanding?
In terms of the diagnosis?
Yeah.
Bipolar type 2.
Okay. How about Dr. Zeisel? You also had access to and incorporated into his report, your report, his diagnosis. What was that?
No, offhand, I don't remember what his diagnosis was.
How about Meg Spinelli? Did you have a chance to review her report and incorporate that into your report?
I reviewed her report.
Do you know what her diagnosis was, sir?
I believe it was bipolar type 1.
Right. So with all of the various healthcare providers that have an opinion of bipolar type 1, would you agree that that is a very strong indicator that a person could very well be suffering from postpartum depression?
I'm confused by your question because that last piece is not necessarily inconsistent with the
You guys, this is where he makes, okay, well, first of all, other than the fact that this is absolutely maddening to me, I can't even tell you, like, maddening, I'm like almost at a loss for words. This is how maddening, like, I can't even, but this is where he makes the important point that I was making earlier when I said about the bipolar disorder, how there's a link between bipolar disorder and postpartum psychosis. But then do you guys remember what Matt was just saying? How Matt was reminding us that this doctor doesn't really, I mean, he does say, like, eventually, like, oh, it exists or something, but, like, you can clearly tell that it is not something that he really subscribes to. So he's not saying nothing was wrong with her, right? So he agrees that she has a mental disease in this clip, but his formulation is major depressive disorder, which is a major depressive episode. But he doesn't believe that the disease crossed the legal threshold for lack of criminal responsibility. That's a completely different proposition, though. So this is why I keep separating, like, what they're diagnosing from the legal responsibility. So a person can be profoundly depressed, They can want to take their life. They could be anxious, medicated, hospitalized, even psychiatrically impaired. And a forensic evaluator may still conclude that the person retained their substantial legal capacities. The defense, though, has to do more than, just prove her illness or prove that she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. Sorry, I was trying to get that out. The Commonwealth has to prove criminal responsibility under Massachusetts standards once the issue is properly raised. So in this next clip, we are going to see, it talks about the DSM. Just me, Joe. Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. Thank you. Oh my God. Are you Barbies here? Barb, I never forgot about you. I promise. You know what? We all love Miss Barbara here. Oh my God. Just me, Jody. Wow. That is so generous of you. I appreciate you. I am so excited. Thank you. I kind of jumped. I got scared for a second. Thank you so much. Matt says, Lucy, I hear you. He made himself look so bad, so childish. Still, yeah, you guys, right? I thought it was what's happening right here? So, let's hear this next postpartum word fight, okay? So we thought this was bad. You ready for this next part? Thank you again, Jody. I appreciate you so, so much. Okay, you guys, you ready for this next argument? Because it's an argument. I can't believe, and did you guys catch how much he makes? When he said hundreds of thousands, when the defense said that, Max says, oh, hundreds of thousands. I think at one point he said maybe more. I have to go back and watch that, so I don't want to put that part out there, but he definitely agreed that he makes tons of money from this. I was like, oh, well, we all need to go get a job. We need to all become experts and then become expert witnesses because, wow, I mean, good for them. They, ought to make good money, but I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, I can't believe he's getting paid all that money to not answer the questions. So you guys, wait to hear this next one. I agree. Are you Barbie? Red is an amazing attorney. Hold on. Let's go watch this.
Yes, sir.
This application that is defined in terms of 4 weeks.
Okay. According to you, right? You understand that World Health Organization is different, right?
If you're talking about the ICD,
what is that time frame, sir?
I'm not sure what it is. I think you said it was 12 weeks.
How about the proposal to amend the DSM-5 text revision, or TR? What's the proposal for that?
Well, there's a proposal specifically around the proposed diagnosis called postpartum psychosis, and for that, it's a 6-week period.
So you've got 4 weeks, you got 6 weeks, you got 12 weeks. Would you agree, sir, that postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis can occur up to a year or even a year or longer?
I don't know, but I am telling you what the DSM says in terms of how to diagnose it and how to code it.
Okay. You would agree, sir, that she is at Tewksbury with a diagnosis of bipolar, right?
That may be among her diagnoses.
Okay. And she's on medication, right?
Yes.
And she hasn't had, over the past 3.5 years, any problems with sleep, anxiety, depression, symptomology of the same while she's been medicated at Tewksbury, right?
She has not demonstrated any signs of mania.
And she hasn't demonstrated any signs of anxiety either, has she, while she's been on the medication, the right medication, right?
I note that she's complaining of anxiety. I'm not sure she's demonstrating signs of anxiety.
Other than the fact that she's paralyzed and has to be in a wheelchair, she's not exhibiting the inability to bathe, the inability to emote, to have feelings, to talk to people. She's able to communicate with people, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what medications that she's on while she's at Tewksbury?
The prosecutor just got so mad, you guys. Did you see her? Watch us, watch. Watch her face.
The inability to emote, to have feelings, to talk to people. She's able to communicate with people, right?
Yes.
Okay.
She was like, that was funny. I caught that and was like, oh my gosh. You guys. Oh my gosh. Excuse me. You guys, like, what the heck? So this exchange here sounds like they're arguing about whether postpartum is after 4 weeks. Is that what you guys are getting? That's what I got. So that's not the cleanest way to understand the disagreement, I guess. So Mac's like talking about the DSM diagnostic terminology and the time window for a specifier. Reddington's using postpartum more broadly as the period after childbirth, and then bringing in postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis literature and clinical programs. So they're not the same question, and I think that that's where the problem is here. But nobody is, like, if you don't know that, and the only way you would know that is if you understood the DSM criteria. I understood what was happening, and I think that's why I was getting so angry, because I was like, what's happening? So a diagnostic manual can define a specifier within a particular onset window without declaring that psychiatric illness occurring later in the childbirth is imaginary. So in fact, Mac eventually said that psychosis at any time is serious. So he wouldn't say the postpartum thing, but instead he says, well, psychosis at any time is serious, and that the 4-week issue is about diagnostic wording. So that clarification for me matters, but it took forever to get there. I was like, come on. It was, oh my gosh. It drove me crazy. But let's go to the next part here. I don't know how you guys felt about all that, or if it drove you as crazy, but I was like, what is happening here? Oh, you know what it reminded me of, you guys? You know how we did that whole like thing about like concrete thought versus like formal operational thought, and you know, the ability to think in hypothetical, deductive. All I could think was, in my opinion, was this Mac guy is extremely concrete operational. He was very like when Reddington was saying like diagnostic criteria, because the words diagnostic criteria go with the DSM, and because the DSM doesn't have a full diagnostic category for postpartum psychosis, they have these specific modifiers like that you have to meet. So it was maddening. It's a specifier, like they have the different specifiers, so classifications and stuff like that, but that had to do with the DSM. So I felt like he was very concrete, operational. All right, in this next part we're going to see that it takes forever to get there. So we're going to see that this part is about postpartum psychosis. What I think happens here, just to set it up, is Reddington couldn't get this guy to agree to the criteria, because he was giving him criteria, like, you know, from literature, from the World Health Organization, from the DSM. Like, he was pulling all this stuff together. He was what we call synthesizing the data, but here, the guy was taking it so literally that, like, the DSM, we need it for diagnostic coding and classification language and da-da-da-da-da. And I think he was missing the point. So he wouldn't answer anything. So instead of doing that, I think this is where Red shows his genius in that he switches up his strategy, and instead he asks him, we're going to see, about the different, like, what Lindsay was feeling, and he goes through it, and then he pulls it together that way and says, well, that's like 9 of the criteria, so wouldn't that, so he kind of gets them that way. So I thought that was interesting. So let's hear.
Let's do this. Symptoms of postpartum psychosis. Number 1, hearing voices. Would you agree, sir, that hearing voices is indicative of having a symptom of postpartum psychosis?
You're referring to a condition or an illness called postpartum psychosis, and I don't know that I can answer questions as a psychiatrist based on that.
Would you agree, sir, that when a person is suffering from postpartum psychosis, you understand that term, do you not?
When we elicit,
do you understand the term postpartum psychosis? It's real easy. Do you understand that term?
It's actually not easy. It's serious. But when we do elicit psychosis after a birth, we take it very seriously. Typically,
who's we? Who's we? We take it seriously.
Well,
who's we?
We psychiatrists. I, as a psychiatrist.
Yeah. So would you agree with me, sir, that when you are diagnosing, if you do, a patient that's coming to you for help after having a baby, so it's postpartum, and has been through, let's say, postpartum depression, and is now complaining of hearing voices or a voice commanding her to act, that is a symptom of postpartum psychosis, yes or no? Is it?
That would be psychosis. I don't know exactly, based on your hypothetical, as to whether it would count as the proposed postpartum psychosis illness, disease, but it certainly would be a concerning symptom or sign.
Okay, so if you had administered the Edinburgh test, that is something that may have assisted you in evaluating the claim that the person is hearing voices, because that's one of the things that you would be concerned about with a patient, right?
You're always concerned if you're encountering somebody who's hearing voices, especially if they're new.
Especially if they're a mother, right?
Anybody.
How about thought broadcasting? You ever heard of that?
Yes.
Okay. How about a patient that says that they're worried about hearing voices, and they're worried that people such as teachers could hear the voices in their head? Is that something that would concern you?
Yes.
How about if the person was afraid that somebody is able to hear the voices in their head and would call the police or DCF and they'd lose their kids? Is that something that would concern you?
Hypothetically, yes, it would be a concern.
How about actually, in this case with Lindsay Clancy? Did you come across that in all of your investigation?
I came across, in my evaluation, a period where she worried that people could hear what she was thinking. That's different, first of all, from thought broadcasting. But in either event, as I've said, she was in a serious psychiatric state, and she was suffering.
How about number 2, postpartum psychosis symptomology, delusional beliefs with distorted reality? Did she complain to Tufts or Gelada about having distorted reality, being disassociated? Things weren't real. Do you recall coming across that?
So there were times that, in the context of some of the medications she was taking, that she felt that things weren't real, yes.
Okay, so
or that
my question, sir,
uncomfortable.
My question, sir, is whether or not she complained of that to her health care providers. You'd agree with me
Yes.
that she did, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about appears normal in between episodes, calm, even laughing? Would you agree with me, sir, that postpartum psychosis waxes and wanes? It comes and it goes, right?
So, are you referring to a particular?
I'm asking you a simple question.
Okay,
Do you
well-
agree that postpartum psychosis waxes and wanes, that it can come out of nowhere and then leave, and a person can appear normal? They can even laugh. Would you agree with that, sir?
Are you referring to postpartum psychosis and illness? Or the findings of psychosis in somebody who's postpartum?
I'm asking you about Lindsay Clancy, the young lady that's sitting right here, that you're testifying against in front of this jury, telling this jury that she was responsible for the death of her children. You with me?
I'm not sure I understand this. That illness has not been refined. It's not something that we in psychiatry, at least as far as I'm aware, can talk about as an illness where we understand its typical course. And we understand
time out.
All right, hold on. Let him finish. Doc, you done with that answer?
I'm done.
Okay, good.
You're telling me, sir, that you don't believe or buy postpartum psychosis. Is that what you're telling me?
I didn't say that at all.
Okay. So you do believe that postpartum psychosis is a serious mental illness?
I don't think it's a matter of belief or not belief. I'm aware of how to elicit the symptom or sign of psychosis. I am also aware that there's a proposal for an illness that would be recognized where we understand its typical course and how it progresses, that has been proposed and that has not been approved for use in psychiatry in the United States.
Approved by who?
By the American Psychiatric Association.
The APA, so you...
Hold on.
By the team that let me, if I can finish, by
That's
the
the judge you're
particular
talking to, not
body
me.
within the American Psychiatric.
All right.
My gosh. Oh my gosh. You guys. This drove me crazy, okay? This is where a scientifically defensible point underneath all of this resistance. Postpartum psychosis is clinically used, but classification language and formal DSM coding are more complicated than a conversational label. So fine, say that once, then answer the clinical question, sir. Like, are hallucinations, delusions, severe mood disturbances, disorganization, and altered reality testing psychotic phenomena that would concern you in a postpartum patient? Yes. We didn't need a 14-round go back and forth to get there, you guys. If I was on the jury, I almost felt like the jury needed an apology. I was like, oh my God. Crazy. It was driving me crazy. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe this guy. I just couldn't believe it. So I also don't want to like pretend though that every defense question was pristine. So some questions builded a diagnosis, a symptom list, a time period, an assumption that Lindsay had the condition, all into one's yes or no package. So experts are allowed to say the experts are allowed to ask or say question that it's clinically imprecise. The problem is when the precision starts looking like evasion here, right? Because you don't want that either. So I think they have to keep in mind that there's a jury that's like listening to this right now, right? So we even saw the judge. What about when the judge gets annoyed. I feel like is that what the judge was? In my opinion, the judge was annoyed. So I was like, what's happening? Oh my gosh, Matt, that is too funny. I can't. He literally has me like almost, notice I said almost at a loss for words here. You guys, the judge had to reset the rules here, which for me is the judge saying, like, I felt like, how can I say it? I felt like the judge, and this is just my opinion, this is how I interpreted it, that the judge needed to like regain control. That's the word I'm looking for. Like regain control. Like, this is my courtroom. These are the rules, and that's how we do it. I think at one part he's even said that's how we do it here. Like that, he might have even said these are the rules, and that's how we do it here. So for the jury, demeanor is not supposed to substitute evidence, obviously. Like, it's not supposed to, not substitute evidence, but like sway the evidence in any way. But humans are humans, right? So even though, like, think about all the times, and whether in this trial or any trial where they're like, strike that, whatever it is they just said, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. So even if something was like stricken from the record at some point, you still heard it. Even take the Catholic things, for example. Even though they were stricken from the record, and there was he gave the jury, what's it called? Like an instruction, gave a jury instruction. I think that's what it's called, right? That about, you can't consider any of that, but you also can't undo that they heard. That they heard that. So humans are humans. So a witness who appears unwilling to answer and can lose persuasive force, in my opinion, too, even when the science is on their side. So I do think that there were things here that this guy could have used to, for the prosecution, but I just feel like he was so evasive, in my opinion, that it backfires. So then the defense walks through a long system inventory. So Red goes through anxiety, panic, feeling overwhelmed, insomnia, adonia, which is an inability to feel pleasure, crying, wanting to take their own life, intrusive thoughts, feeling unlike herself. So then Mack agrees that many of those experiences were in the record. And for me, that was important. So his disagreement wasn't that she suffered, because we even seen in this clip here, he says, she suffered. His disagreement was more over that DSM classification and ultimately what the symptoms meant for January 24th, 2023. So that's my, interpretation of what we just saw. So this next part here, let's go to, hold on, in this next part here, when redirect, all right, here we go. We're going to get a redirect, and we're going to see what the bow lady has.
Good morning, Dr. Mack. Now, defense counsel kept referring to your investigation in this case. Do you see your role as an investigator when you're retained to do these evaluations?
No.
And in fact, you are evaluating for a specific question, correct?
That's correct.
And in your evaluation in this case, you were asked to focus on the mental condition of Lindsay Clancy at the time of January 24th, 2023, right?
So, excuse me, he's able to answer yes or no, but this is direct, so I'm objecting to the leading.
I'm going to allow just to kind of focus to the area, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you. You can answer that question.
Yes.
Now, were you provided the information that you reviewed?
Yes.
And were you aware where that came from, whether it was the court or the district attorney's office or from defense?
I'm not necessarily aware of the origin of any of the documents that I reviewed, only that I did review them and I did possess them.
And as far as the timing of when you were retained in this case, I believe your testimony on Friday was that your memory was early 2025 you were retained. Is that right?
Yes, I would say that the initial discussion about it was at the end of 2024. I'm not exactly sure when the Commonwealth or the District Attorney's Office exactly made the retention happen, but I understand it to be early 2025.
And you were provided a significant amount of information after you were retained, correct?
Yes.
And that information continued to come to you up until the point that you were going to meet with the defendant in April of 2026. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
And were you able to set up that interview with her on your own?
No.
Is it your understanding that it had to be with the permission of the court and the parties?
That's my understanding.
And that date in April was a date that...
So, Joanne, thank you so much for stopping in, for giving the happy peep. You know, that always makes me smile. That was so very generous of you, and I do appreciate you. So thank you so very, very much for doing that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then, oh my gosh, you guys, like, what? So, here on Redirect, the Commonwealth did exactly what you would expect, in my opinion. So they reframed his role as an evaluator rather than an investigator. So I thought that that was important for them, at least. So this, for me, emphasized that he's paid regardless of the outcome, which I'm sorry, but I felt so much bias, and that's just how I felt. That was my opinion. So they clarified, the prosecution was able, they clarified the Park-Dietz relationship. They had him explain that. They explained the interview dates that were arranged through the legal process, and then they returned to the DSM specifier issue. The prosecution also cleaned up the Florida LeBron case used to impeach him from the defense, right? So Mack acknowledged that a court had not accepted him as a qualified expert for that specific issue. He did explain the limitation was involving a nationwide substance use data rather than Florida-specific TANF data. Importantly, that case had nothing to do with criminal responsibility, so that doesn't erase the impeachment, but it did give the juror some context, in my opinion. So, and then Mack's done after this. So the court takes a break. This is where, you know, we get to the next witness. So here we go. So after the break, Dr. Kirk Heilbrun takes the stand. So this is the second actual witness of the day. So his credentials are extensive, you guys. Forensic psychology, academic work at Drexel, which is right here in Philadelphia, hundreds of publications and professional presentations, and roughly 330 prior times testifying across forensic issues. So one statistic jumped out immediately, okay? So let's watch this and see what he has to say. So here we go. So it's about 75% of his evaluations are for the defense and 25% are for prosecution. But let's listen to them say it. All right, let's go all the way up to here.
In juvenile criminal and civil litigation in both state and federal court. And I estimate that over the course of my career, I have conducted about 75% of the time I've conducted an evaluation and testified on behalf of the defense. And the remaining 25% have been conducted and have testified on behalf of the prosecution or by order of the court.
And have there been times in that 25% of your casework that you've been retained by the prosecution, say for a criminal responsibility evaluation, where you find that the defendant is not criminally responsible and you have to tell the prosecutor that?
Yes, that happens with the prosecutor, and it also happens with the defense. And it's just something that we have to be able to do if we're in the profession of forensic psychology, because if we try to be thorough and accurate and impartial, then sometimes the results will favor whoever asks us to conduct the evaluation, and sometimes they won't. And what they have to hear, if my findings don't favor them, is that they're probably not going to want to use it.
And is there something called retention bias?
Joanne, thank you so much for the happy poop. That was awesome. So sorry, Dr. Vona, it just dropped on my bed. Good night. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love that you're listening while you go to bed. So my voice is in your head as you go to bed. I don't know. That was the corniest thing ever. I just like rhymed in like a go to bed voice. Let's see. Okay, so here, you guys, I thought the reason that this part mattered for me was what he was doing is they were showing that he only testified 25% for a prosecution. So I guess that's supposed to be put in your subconscious that he rarely testifies for the state. So in this case, he's testifying for the state, right? So they're trying to make that association, in my opinion, so that it looks like, you know, he doesn't work for the prosecutor as much, and that makes it like an unavailable attack type thing. Like, you can't attack me on that part. Then next we see that he defines retention bias. So let him explain that first, and then I'll comment.
There is. That's something that's been discussed. Particularly findings don't favor them, is that they're probably not going to want to use it.
And is there something called retention bias?
There is. That's something that's been discussed, particularly in the last 10 or 15 years. And there are a number of different kinds of biases that the field has paid particular attention to, potentially, over the last 20 years or so. And retention bias is the bias that is a part of what we can experience when we want to or inclined to favor the side that asks us to conduct the evaluation. And that's an important consideration. And I'm aware of it, and I try to guard against it as much as possible by talking with others, getting multiple sources of information, and a variety of other ways of doing that.
So when you conduct a forensic evaluation, you're actively guarding against having that retention bias?
Yes.
Okay, you guys, so first of all, hi, Justice Jane. Welcome to the chat tonight. So this was one of like the big teaching moments, if you will, for me tonight. So retention bias is, for like an easy way to put it, retention bias is like a pull to the favor the side that hired you. So if the defense hires me, you know, if they think about it, if they retain me, so they hire me, that I'm gonna favor them, I'm gonna bias them. So whoever hires me, I'm more likely to bias. Confirmation bias is the pull to lock into a hypothesis early and then selectively notice supporting information. So the important point is not good experts have no bias. Everyone has cognitive biases, you guys. I have cognitive bias, you have cognitive bias, we all have cognitive biases. The professional question is more focused on whether your method is designed to detect and then constrain them. So, you know, can we detect these biases? Because if we can detect them, then maybe we can account for them, or, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Detect and constrain them. There you go. So Heilbrun says that he tries to do that through multiple sources, so through collateral information, alternative hypotheses, and not over-specializing in one diagnosis. So you can agree or disagree with his conclusions later, right? But this is the correct kind of forensic reasoning to describe to a jury. What hypotheses did you consider? What data supported your hypotheses? And what data cut against each one? And why did you land where you landed? So they're the things that I am listening for when we listen to this next part. So right here. All right.
Her together on 2 days, we took that information and we each independently came up with our own report, our own review of that information, our own analysis of what it meant, and so on. So, no, we wrote separate reports. We actually did not agree on the diagnosis.
Now, if we could have the PowerPoint. In terms of your evaluation of Ms. Clancy, including the record.
Before we go further, that was kind of like a mic drop a little bit. Like the Commonwealth's 2 rebuttal experts interviewed the same defendant together and they didn't reach the same diagnosis. I mean, I guess that's not automatically a weakness. Psychiatry and psychology are not, you know, the exact same thing. So we have a psychologist here and then we had a psychiatrist prior. One can give medications, the other one does more of the talk therapy and, you know, helps that way. So it's profoundly important for, you know, to see that not only is this not simple, but I'm sorry, even if it's like complicated in the sense that there's different lenses, the fact that both were hired by the prosecution, they both went to the exact same interview, right? So 2 days of it. I know that there was an additional day for this guy, for Heilbrun, because he did psychological testing as well. But you guys, for me, Anyway, Mack said that major depressive disorder was the diagnosis. Heilbrun says bipolar II, which goes with what the defense is looking for and what a lot of the other, you know, experts were saying. So defense experts have also offered bipolar spectrum formulations here, like we did see that. And then, you know, you guys, for me, that bipolar versus not mentally ill, now that picture's gone for me. We have a prosecution rebuttal witness saying, so he's an expert, saying that she has bipolar II disorder. So I think that this might have an effect on the jury. I don't know how it's going to, if it'll do anything as far as sway the jury, but I do think that that was important for the defense, not necessarily for the prosecution. And again, this is just my opinion. If I were like on the jury, these are the things that I would have been picking up on, is pretty much, right? So the dispute here is starting to become, for me, what kind of mood disorder is there? What's like, was there psychosis at the time of the crime? And what did it do to legal capacity? So was she capable of understanding that what she was doing was illegal? So Heilbrun will walk us through the history. Limited impairment before 2022, like there wasn't a whole lot of history, whereas with like Andrea Yates, for example, we had a ton of history beforehand. So over here we do have, like, you know, after she gives birth, there's a ton of data after that, but you know, before that, growing up, looking at her developmentally, there wasn't a huge history, which I think is something that plays into the personality testing that was done, and them saying that they, you know, they didn't detect that. So we saw that there was increased anxiety after Callan's birth, that her medication changes, there's severe insomnia, weight loss, panic, disconnection, depression, intrusive, wanting to take her out thoughts, and then later thoughts involving harm to the children. So he draws an important line between intrusive internal thoughts and auditory hallucination experienced by her, allegedly, as a voice. So let's listen to that real quick. Here we go.
He finished his answer.
Why don't you come in focus?
Are we still on number 3 or have we moved on?
We're still on number 2,
okay.
But I'm also slipping in a little bit of number 3 as I answer number 2.
Okay. And if you could please continue describing what was happening in December of 2022.
Yes. Around this time, late November, early December, she began to experience what she called horrible, intrusive thoughts. And those thoughts were about harming herself, potentially. And as she continued to experience these kinds of thoughts later into December and January, they would occasionally be about harming the children. But for the most part, particularly early on, these were thoughts about possible suicide and harming herself. And the way she described it is these thoughts would just pop into my head, and they included things like, your brain is damaged, you need to kill yourself. Now, the way she described these is they were not auditory hallucinations. Instead, they were her own thoughts. They were intrusive and unwelcome, but they were not auditory hallucinations. And that's important because if she had been hearing a voice like you're hearing my voice right now, it comes from outside of your head. And that's a different kind of a symptom than having thoughts, even unwelcome and intrusive thoughts that are in your head. If it's coming from outside, that is very likely a psychotic symptom. And if it's a psychotic symptom, then that has different implications for what's wrong with you as opposed to something that is unwelcome and intrusive but inside your own head.
So that was real important, right? So intrusive thoughts and psychotic command hallucinations, they're not interchangeable. So an intrusive thought is experienced as just that, right? A thought. So it's unwanted, it's distressing, it's egodystonic. A hallucination is a perceptual experience without an external stimulus. An auditory command hallucination may be experienced as a voice telling the person to act. The distinction here matters, though, because the defense's January 24th theory depends heavily on a command voice hallucination. Now, watch what happens diagnostically. Heilbrun does not say this was ordinary anxiety. He doesn't say that she was fine psychologically, right? He actually goes on and diagnoses bipolar II disorder. So let's listen to this next part.
And they use it effectively over the course of their lives, particularly if they have some anxiety that might not fully need treatment, but it's something that not succeeding for her. Okay, and then there was something called the Mahoney-Slade hallucination scale, and so she endorsed the following things. Sometimes a passing thought will seem so real it frightens me.
You guys, I wrote down the wrong timestamp for the next part that I wanted us to hear. The part that it wasn't the right part, but you know what? I wrote down 5:36, and when I go to 5:36, it's like the commentators. But let's see if it had what I was looking for. Maybe it'll show us here. Let's see.
It was, and it was hard because of all the diagnoses in the records and all the symptoms that she experienced.
Well, there you go. It's right there. Major findings. My diagnosis: bipolar II disorder. Then he writes, this is a criminal responsibility evaluation, so both mental state and legal standard are relevant. Psychological testing results, and then important to appraise motivation for taking the lives of the children. Did they show no, they didn't show here the part right before it. Okay, so here what I was like wanting to get at is that, you know, the prosecutor asked whether bipolar II was his diagnosis, and he says it was. He explains why the absence of a clearly documented full manic episode pushed him away from bipolar I, but he did say that he eventually comes to the conclusion that she has bipolar II disorder. So for me, this was huge. So the Commonwealth witness has now moved closer to the defense's opinion on diagnoses than Mack did, the first guy, right? While still potentially disagreeing with the defendants on criminal responsibility. So he's saying that we're coming up with the same diagnosis, but we're disagreeing on criminal responsibility. So this is why legal cases can't be reduced to which side believes in mental illness. So Heilbrun can accept bipolar II and still reject the conclusion that a command hallucination deprived her of legal capacity. And notice the methodological reason he gives. He looked for identifiable mood episodes. He saw major depression. He did not think the record clearly established the kind of full manic episode needed for bipolar I, but he did ultimately find bipolar II more fitting. This is, you know, this was a diagnostic argument. The criminal responsibility analysis is going to come next. So let's see what they say next. So we have 549.
That of the standard for criminal responsibility in Massachusetts is that a person is not criminally responsible if at the time of the offense they suffered from a mental disease or defect and as a result lacked substantial capacity either to appreciate the criminality or wrongfulness of their conduct or to conform their conduct to the requirements of the law. So there were really three parts. There really are three parts to that criminal responsibility standard. The first is mental disease or defect, and that's one of the reasons why I've paid so much attention to the symptoms and when they began and things like that. But the other thing that I try to do is take those symptoms and see how they affect somebody, in this case Ms. Clancy's, capacity for knowing that something like this was illegal or wrong, or how they affected her capacity for conforming her conduct to the requirements of the law, which I think of as kind of controlling her behavior. And to determine, is that something that, those three elements, are those things that you kept in mind throughout your evaluation of the records and your interview of the defendant and the psychological testing that you did? It is, yes, and it's something that I put on page 1 of my report because I always try to do that to try to make it as clear as I can that this is something I'm paying attention to throughout the entire evaluation.
So you guys, that's important, right? That he gives he's giving two explanations here of why, or understanding why she took the lives of the children. I'm trying to think of a different word to use here. So this is where they should have like a big graphic where it says like mental illness does not equal automatic lack of criminal responsibility, right? So just because someone's mentally ill doesn't mean that they shouldn't be held criminally responsible. And this is where the jury needs to connect the disease to legal relevant capacities at the time of the offense, if that's what they're going to do or not. I personally think this is going to wind up being a hung jury. But so legally guilty, welcome. And I agree with you, this is one of the better experts. So he teaches right at the university very close to me, And I was like, oh wow. So I thought he was great. Also, he then does something I wish more experts did in front of the juries. He names competing explanations rather than pretending that there's only one possible story. So he gives two possible explanations there. Here we go. I'm going to show it to you right here. Here. I meant to say here, not there. Oh my gosh, it's getting late. All right, here we go.
Seems so out of character that I thought it was very important to try to figure out why it might have happened. So this is how I approached it. The other thing about the why question is it could well be something that is valuable to know when we're thinking about whether she understood that something was wrong. If I'm experiencing that, I literally have the idea that that if I'm thinking it, you can hear what I'm saying, just as if I were putting it on a television or podcast or a movie or whatever. It's just coming out that way. I asked her about that, and she said, and other people asked her about that too, and she said it was not thought broadcasting. There were a couple of things that started to have some evidence for, and this is what it looked like. One is the psychosis, the possibility that she had a severe mental illness, experiencing hallucinations, delusions, that sort of thing. And as part of that, on January 24th, experienced those symptoms that we're going to talk about in a minute. And I'm calling that the first bullet point there, acute psychosis with command hallucinations. The second possible explanation was as part of an attempt to take one's own life, as part of a suicide, one might harm one's children if you thought that would prevent them from suffering. And let me see if I can give you an example of that. If one of us were to learn, and we had no doubt in our mind that the Holocaust was coming tomorrow, and we thought that was going to be awful, and I can't live through that, and so I'm going to take my own life. If I had children, the question might come up, do I take them with me? Do I take their lives as well? Now, I'm not saying that I would definitely do that, but what I'm saying is that it would come up as a possibility in what I thought about. And so there ended up being, in my mind, two possible explanations for why she did what she did. The first.
Okay, he just went over them, so he just repeats them again. The first explanation was acute psychosis with command hallucinations, and the second one is a severe attempt in which she took her own life and then the children so that they would be with her and not suffer after she was deceased. So let's stop right here. Both of his hypotheses involve severe psychopathology, okay, you guys? One is acute psychosis with command voice, and I am not diagnosing anyone here, so let's just make that clear. I'm going right by what we're hearing in the testimony. So again, let me repeat that part real quick. One is acute psychosis with command voice. The other is one where it's centered around taking one's own life, in which the children were incorporated into her death plan. So that's not the same thing as conventional instrumental homicide motive, like money, revenge, escape, or anger. So then comes his bottom line for this part. He says most of the evidence he saw supported the second explanation, not the acute command psychosis explanation. In my opinion, this is the Commonwealth's strongest psychological rebuttal today. So not that she was healthy, not that she wasn't, that nothing was wrong. It's that there's bipolar II and severe mental illness, yes, but the claimed command hallucination is not sufficiently supported, and the better explanation for the conduct is tied to wanting to take one's own life and not wanting to leave the children behind. And that might become a real problem, right? So let's go to this next part real quick. We're getting towards the end, so hang in there. It might be easier if I just do it this way. Oh yeah, it will.
Her after supporting each of those, but
To what command hallucinations?
yes. The first was, that's what she said. I asked her that question, and that's the way she explained it happened. She said, sometime on the afternoon of January 24th, 2023, that she heard a voice, and the voice said, "This is your last chance. You have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself." If she actually heard a voice like that, that would be evidence of psychosis being experienced and what we call command hallucinations, where the voice is instructing her to do something. There were some other possible things that made me think that it could be a severe mental illness that she was experiencing, and two in particular. One was thinking that others might know her thoughts. Now, this is something that is a symptom of psychosis called thought broadcasting if it's experienced in a certain way. In thought broadcasting, if I'm experiencing that, I literally have the idea that if I'm thinking it, you can hear what I'm saying, just as if I were putting it on the television or a podcast or a movie or whatever. It's just coming out that way.
Do you guys remember the last guy said that it wasn't thought broadcasting? Did anybody else catch that? Because I feel like I did. I feel like the guy before this said, "Oh, but that's not thought broadcasting," and I was kind of confused. I was like, yeah, but it kind of is. And so I'm so glad that Heilbrun is clarifying thought broadcasting here, because it is what I thought it is. Like he said, it's literally, and she reports thought broadcasting. So this is why I actually find him more persuasive as a forensic communicator, even where I may question parts of his reasoning. Like, he gives the evidence on the other side. He says essentially that if the voice happened as described, that is psychosis. He does not pretend that the defense's theory is nonsensical. He evaluates it, and so that's why I find him so highly credible. And I think that he is, I mean, in my opinion, he was a great witness for the prosecution. All right, let's do this next part real quick.
Testing. So what we have to do instead is we have to kind of develop our ideas about how it might have been experienced, what it was consistent with, what the disorder is. We take a broader approach, which is what I've tried to do in talking about this.
We'll go to the next slide, please. And was there further evidence against acute psychosis?
Yes. I'm going to start with the question of thoughts or hallucinations. I've already said that I found the account of hallucinations to be, as she described it, it would be very, very unusual to experience it that way. Never having, not before, not since, constantly for 18 minutes. However, if this was a thought, an unwelcome, intrusive thought, but still a thought, that's basically, this is your last chance, you have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself, then that would be consistent with thoughts that she'd been experiencing for some time. She'd been having thoughts about harming herself, that she was, it was going to be very difficult for her to do this in a way that that made sense. She was experiencing thoughts about hurting herself because her brain might have been damaged. She was experiencing thoughts about hurting the kids. She was experiencing all sorts of unwelcome thoughts. If that were the case on January 24th, if these were thoughts, then that would be consistent with what she'd been experiencing for months before. So that was something that made more sense to me, that rather than an auditory hallucination, it would have been an unwelcome, intrusive thought.
Okay, you guys, so here we need to look at how much confidence should we have that this particular command hallucination occurred in this particular way at this particular time. So Heilbrun points to features he considers atypical and to inconsistencies. The defense, however, like you said in chat, will attack those in cross-examination. I expect the cross to focus hard on delayed disclosure, trauma and memory, the difference between symptom validity testing, which we explained in the very beginning of the live, and retrospective credibility, the longitudinal symptom record, and whether first acute psychotic break must look textbook clean to be genuine. So he also addresses an apparent contradiction. Broad testing did not show malingering. Remember that. Yet he saw features of the claimed voice that raised exaggeration or fabrication concerns. So his answer is essentially that a person can respond validly on broad testing and still have one specific symptom claim that requires separate scrutiny. So methodologically, that is possible, you guys. So whether he applied that scrutiny fairly is what the cross should test. So here we go. This next part. Near the end of the day, with the jury out, there's an important legal argument over the discussion of wrongfulness, religion, heaven, and his reasoning. Okay? Well, let's just see. So let's go to 704. Oh, well, they did the cross-examining. Hold on. 704. I don't want to jump ahead of myself.
Execution. Clancy. I have to move for mistrial reluctantly. The reason is that this is intentional misconduct on the part of the prosecution. You know that this whole idea of injecting Roman Catholic faith, the concept of mortal sin, into this trial occurred, I don't even remember now, about a week ago, and
the witness asked, I should have showed that part, but I don't know exactly where it is, and I don't want to, I guess I could figure it out because it was the last thing before the judge says objection.
Isn't suicide a mortal sin?
Yeah, can I see counsel over here?
Well, I went right to it. That was it, you guys. So he said, is doing that a mortal sin? And immediately they objected. So let's hear what happens.
the objection out, Your Honor had us at the sidebar at the same time, and very forcefully, in my opinion, indicated to the jurors that they should not consider that to any degree. At the time, I put on record the fact that I did not feel that, I felt that the court's instructions were sufficient. They were forceful, they were right on point, and we moved forward without a motion for a mistrial. I made a tactical decision. But unfortunately, at this point, it's a concern I have because this is just over the top. It's the same thing again, talking about religion, talking about heaven, talking about killing people and the impact or the effect that it would have on Lindsay as well as her children. The fact that this is not the first time that it occurred during the trial, and the prosecution has previously brought up the concept of mortal sin, based on your ruling in the past, in conjunction with the fact that they brought it up again, I believe it was intentional misconduct. and I feel that the court should grant the motion for mistrial.
All right, thank you. Commonwealth?
Thank you, Your Honor. The question I asked the witness did not ask for any testimony about religion, about Catholicism, about mortal sins, or anything like that. And the slide is still up on the screen. There's nothing on the slide about Catholicism, about mortal sins, about any of that. The witness was explaining his reasoning. I don't think it was intentional on part of the witness either. If we look at his interview of Ms. Clancy, one of the things that this witness has to do is determine whether the defendant knew the wrongfulness of her conduct, and that can be either that it was criminally wrong or morally wrong. And he explored that with her in the interview and asked her about whether she knew it was legally wrong, and she said she had no concept of legal consequences. And then he went on to ask her about moral wrongfulness and about her religion and whether she knew it was morally wrong, and she did say that she had knowledge that suicide was considered sinful. So I believe that's where the witness was going in trying to explain his reasoning. I don't think he was intentionally trying to inflame the jury or cause an issue in this case. I know
Oh my God, you guys, I don't think I heard that the first time I listened to that. Hi, Kelly Time, how you doing? You guys, what? That, she just admitted that she knew where he was going with that. So doesn't that mean that right there is misconduct? She literally just said, I think that's where he was going with that. Also, I feel like if she knew that he measured this legally and morally, I feel like somebody should have told him beforehand, just in case he didn't know, from the 330 times that he previously testified, that you weren't supposed to bring morality into it. I didn't like that. So let's hear what the judge had to say about it.
That was statements that had been made in evidence already. And then he indicated that was part of her expectation, that she and the children would be together in heaven with God. All right. Now we're getting a little closer to problematic area. Then he testified she was raised as a Catholic. And as I understand Catholic considerations, that's not necessarily what happens. How is any of that proper at this point? But it was not, well, I'm not going to declare a mistrial at this time. What I am going to do is I'm going to bring the jury in. I'm going to tell them to disregard it. I'm going to tell them that's an inappropriate area of inquiry and that this witness's understanding of Catholic dogma or Catholic teaching is irrelevant. There's no evidence of his background or training or having been to the seminary or any of that. And so I think, and that's where he injected that. And so I am giving that, but the Commonwealth, I'm going to strongly, and perhaps the strongest language, talk to him and let him know that he can't go into that. And then my thought is, I'm going to bring the jury back in. I'm going to give him that instruction, and I'm going to send him home.
Okay, so here you guys, the judge's resolution as reflected in the transcript here, and, oh wait, okay, I thought I just saw, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. Anyway, let me get back to what I was saying. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so Heilbrun could testify, says the judge, this is what the judge comes to the conclusion, that he can testify to conclusions, but that he should leave particular portions of the reasoning out. So, and I think that's important because we have to be precise about the evidentiary record here, right? As they say. So something said in a jury out discussion is not the same thing, though, as testimony admitted for the jury's consideration. So, in closing, where did today leave me? Well, Mack's testimony reinforced the Commonwealth's position on legal responsibility, but in my view, and you guys, this is just my view, his communication style gave the defense openings it didn't need to have, right? So then Heilbrun was the much more consequential witness, in my opinion, today. He diagnosed bipolar II disorder. He acknowledged severe psychiatric illness. He recognized that a genuine command voice would be psychosis, but he concluded that the evidence better supported a taking one life-centered explanation than an acute command hallucination explanation. And that sets up the question the jury ultimately has to answer, you guys, not whether she's sick, because I think, today and even on other days, it's going to be harder to argue that she was, that she wasn't sick. However, it is going to be hard to argue it's not going to be hard to argue that she was suffering and that she's sick, but it will be hard to argue that there's psychiatric, the psychosis part. The question is, what illness does she have? So whether she was psychotic at the moment and whether the illness deprived her of substantial capacity required by Massachusetts law. So that's the other part of this. If you have to go, but you have to go by the law, right? In my opinion, I still think that, yes, Lucy, 100%, she can be sick and criminally responsible all at the same time. And I think the prosecution got a few wins here with that. So let's see what happens. Let's see. I heard her say numerous times, guess what? Lindsay never told her healthcare providers that. Oh, what about? Oh, wait, I must have missed the one before that. You can't lie to your doctor and then blame them for not treating you for your afflictions you failed to completely disclose. She tried everything, but okay. Well, this is the thing, you guys, and Lucy agrees. So, and it is about the kids here. So let's keep Cora, Dawson, and Callan all at the forefront of this, because we need to remember what's important. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm just, I don't know that I'm all the way where you guys are, and I hope that you guys respect me as much as I respect all of you, because I do see your point, which is why I think a hung jury is probably what's going to occur. I think that there's going to be enough people, again, in my opinion, that are going to, but this is the thing, right? So I see your point and then I swing back the other way, and then I'll see your point and then I swing back the other way. And I guess by law, if Travis was here, I feel like Travis would say that by law, if I'm even swinging back a tiny bit or thinking a tiny bit, that is Dale, right? So when I look at this as a whole, and again, just my opinion, I hope all of you still subscribe, like, and stay, right? Because we're not always going to agree on every little thing. But she's going to be, she created her own, not, let me rewind that and evaluate how I say this. She unfortunately will live with every single day reminders of what she did just by being paralyzed, right? By not having a husband anymore, by not being able to get up and run marathons like she loved to do. I mean, look at the irony in that, right? She loved to run, and she can't do those things anymore. She can't shower by herself. There's just, allegedly, from what they were saying. So I just feel like, she's already going to be in her own hell, and you guys know I'm super duper duper empathetic. So I'm sure that there's some bias there too. And thank you guys for saying that everybody's entitled to your opinion. This case is very divisive, but Lucy, one of the things that I would love to show people is that it doesn't matter which way, we would come down on either side to vote if we had to, but more so that we can still come together and support each other, because we legit, have each other's backs here, and I like it. Okay, so Justice Jane saying guilty and criminally responsible keeps her locked up forever and is the only way to ensure that Lindsay doesn't ever get out. If she stays in a mental hospital, she would be evaluated every 6 months and eventually get out. Lucy says, I don't want to see her in prison. Locked ward for life is more appropriate. A locked ward. So this is the thing. I think that this is hard to talk about. Are You Sunny Now says it's nice to be able to talk about the hard things. I agree. Lucy Yates, apparently or allegedly, she turns down her evaluations for release every year. Like, I think once a year you're up for like evaluation, and she turns them down. So I wonder now, does anybody know? I guess not. If you're found not criminally liable, then they can't put a sentence on how long you spend in the institution. So I guess that's where where it comes. Oh, Barbara Hall, Susan Smith. I feel like Susan Smith was a different story to me. I feel like she was, like, in my opinion, more of like someone who was eliminated. Thank you for following. I appreciate you. That was so cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, but Susan Smith got denied, says Barbara. But didn't she like want to eliminate her kids to be with this guy and stuff like that? Or do I have the wrong case? But that's what I remember. It's either or in this case. So Justice Jane, I get your issue there, right? It's either or. So I get that. I guess my thing is this. I feel like Lindsay has no prior behavioral, what's the word I'm looking, developmental, like over her development. There's no evidence of any type of bad behavior. Like, she's never been accused of, antisocial behavior, and you don't even have to go that far. Like, I'm not even saying that you would have to be disordered in any way. There's nobody that's ever said, like, she was mean to me, she used to scream at the kids. Like, from everything we hear, that wasn't it at all. Like, she loved kids. Apparently, she was told about the Yates case and cried and said, how can a mother do that to her kids? Like, if those things are true, it's like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it took 18 minutes, they said, approximately, for her to take all three of their lives. And my problem with this is, and I need to do more research, which is why I didn't put it into like all the things I was like saying here tonight, but I want to research and look at how long does one stay. Does anyone know? Truth, do you know how long does like someone stay in psychosis for? Would you stay in psychosis for that long? So I don't know. But for you guys, which piece of the testimony changed or didn't change your view most? So did either one of these guys change anything for you? Did they, further validate that you're on the right path? So either way, let me know. But let's close by centering on Cora, Dawson, and Callan. So when we explain mental illness, I don't want to minimize their deaths. So I want to make sure that we always are thinking about them, and that, that we remember that their little lives were taken and that they should be here. And that at the end of the day, if someone, and allegedly she told people that she wanted to hurt the children, at least her mother and her husband, like, let's take these things more seriously. When someone tells us what they're feeling, like, let's listen, and let's not ask questions like, if somebody says they want to take their own lives, don't say things like, don't say things like, do you have a plan? why do we have to wait until you have a plan? If somebody's going to say that I want to take my own life, like, why can't we take that more serious? Now, I do understand that we don't want a situation where people are afraid to say that they're having ideation type thing in fear that they might get hospitalized for that. However, maybe there's an option somewhere in the middle, like it's somewhere where we can negotiate, where if the patient is the one seeking the help, so like if they're seeking, if they're seeking the help to be inpatient, then let's take that into consideration. So that way it protects people who, you know, are having those thoughts. They could feel like that they could say that without having repercussions if they, don't have a plan. But at the same time, if you're afraid and you don't have a plan, but you think you need that help, like, let's do something to where that is a possibility. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if it would have made a difference here, but what doesn't hurt, or call an 800 number. It needs to be taken more seriously. Yeah, this is the thing though. She did call 2 of them. She called twice. And apparently was like turned down. Could you imagine? Isn't each person psychosis different? Yes. And we certainly don't know very much about this. And it's obviously the doctors that the prosecutors have provided. 100% Heidi, which is why, and I'm going to do more, I have no sympathy for a triple baby killer. Justice Jane, this is the thing though, as somebody who has very much studied, psychopathology, I teach abnormal psychopathology, same course, for decades now, and so I very much read up on all of the latest things, do whatever I can to stay up to date on things, and I guess the mental health piece for me needs to be considered here. I understand that at the end of the day, these 3 babies' lives were taken, and that is horrible, but 2 things could be true. That could be horrible, and she could have been failed as far as the mental health system and seeking treatment. So that's just my opinion, and I respect your opinion. So, we're going to see what happens. I still think that there's going to be a hung jury. So I don't know. They would have had different response if she'd been fully honest with them. So, but that's the thing though, Luce, is that you're right. But as a nurse, she knew that if she said that she wanted to hurt her kids, or said, some of the things that she said, she knew that there would be a possibility that then, Child Protective Services would come into the picture. And for me, I don't know if it's just where I live and stuff, I see that when Child Protective Services gets involved, it makes it that much harder for the parents to then regain 100% custody back. So I have to be 100% honest. As a mom, I feel like I get it. I understand why somebody might be afraid to admit that. At the same time, I also understand that as a result of that bad decision not to tell that, right, that now there's, this ultimate horrifying event. So I think those things can be true. I think we all agree on, obviously, like the facts of the case and what occurred. For me, I'm just taking that mental, I don't think everybody that is in a situation where they just take someone's life is like, oh, but my thing is this: if there's evidence, I don't know, in Massachusetts it's a little bit different too. I hate to talk about legal stuff because I don't really know what I'm talking about. Barbara, you agree with me, you know what I'm saying? So, hey Birdie, I understand why there are people who say 3 unalive babies and want they're held criminally responsible. I myself knew someone, with postpartum psychosis. So I'm on the other end of it. Legally, that's my thing. So, and if you guys, I don't know, Justice Jane, if you were able to, if Justice Jane, if you left tonight, but I don't, if you could still hear us. I wonder if you go back and you watch the live I did where we looked at the interview with a woman who went through postpartum psychosis, and when I listened to her story, I had a little bit of a better understanding of what psychosis was in that period of time. So I don't know. I'm just saying, Lucy says, I have a close family member who's psychotic often. I don't see lack of agency and responsibility. I get it. I get it. But this is my thing. So for me personally, what I would have rather, like, what would make me feel like right now, I think my ability to go back and forth is saying that I don't think either side is pulling me 100%. Let's say that, like, what would have get me, like, I'm trying to watch my wording. For me, if delusionally, if she had a delusion where she thought that taking her kids' lives was the only way because it was due to a delusion, that would have gotten, like, then I think I would have seen it 100%. It's the 19-minute auditory hallucination that I need to look up to just, like, I think I need to do more research. I am still on the side of, not criminally responsible. Please don't come for me, you guys. And please come back next time still, even though you disagree with me. But that's where I'm at, and I respect where you're at, and it is what it is, right? So, again, Cora, Dawson, and Kellen are at the very center. Kelly Dine says, same. I don't know if you meant where I'm at, but that's just where I'm at right now. And that it is what it is. So there is going to be disagreement about criminal responsibility. So it should never go to cruelty, which I love this channel because we can respect each other's differences, right? And we treat each other with dignity and respect here because we all put fun and dysfunctional, right? So here we go, you guys. I am going to stop the share there. We went through the entire day. I'm going to go to bed now because it's late. Well, I'm actually not going to go to bed. I have to do more. I'm like getting my course shells together for my classes that are all starting next week. So I can't believe the summer's over. Like, I love going back to school, but the fact that the summer's over already is just like, what the fuck, you guys? Please do me a favor and like this and subscribe, because YouTube keeps demonetizing my lives, which is pretty much like annoying. So I'm not getting in the algorithm, and I'm not getting, like, I need more subscribers. I need 9 more subscribers, I think it is, to make it to my next goal. So if 9 people out there watching are not subscribed and you want to do this educational channel a favor, please hit subscribe. I will be forever grateful. I just want to help educate everyone and educate myself through you, learning through your experiences. So let's continue to do that together. Thank you to all of my mods. Thank you to all the people in green. I can't believe how many of you are members. I appreciate that, and I will forever be grateful to you guys. Good night. Lucy? Oh my God, Lucy, shut up. Lucy. Yes, Lucy, oh my God. Thank you.
Thank you.
God, Lucy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh my God. I was like, where are the thank yous at? Wow. Lucy, you guys. Lucy just donated 5 Minds Behind True Crime memberships. Lucy, you are the best. I love you.
Thank you.
These make me so excited.
Thank you.
I love seeing new people come through the memberships. Lucy, I can't, where is it over here? I'm trying to find it to highlight it. It didn't come up on this stream yet. It will in a second. It's still catching up, I guess. But let's see who got them. Ready? We'll do that in the meantime. Wow, Lucy, thank you so much. Okay, so Google
Thank
Lorraine
you.
got
Thank
one.
you.
Jamie got one. Sinbad got one. Dogs Rule. Fancy Mother Nancy got one, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fancy fucking Nancy. Yes. That's amazing. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, just me. Oh, I got a goat trophy in number 1. You guys, my heart is... Wow, that was a huge one. That was huge. Oh my God, that was like a $10. Oh my God. Wow, you guys, I can't even. Wow. Thank you, you guys. And I don't think Fancy Nancy was here with us tonight. Fancy Nancy is usually here. Fancy Nancy. Oh my God, I think I did see Fancy Nancy. Are you here? Fans? He said fans instead of Nance. Wait, let's see. Is Nancy here? Is that that's Fancy Nancy, right? Yeah, right? Well, welcome to the Minds Behind True Crime with Dr. Vona, where we put the fun in dysfunctional. Lucy, I appreciate you so much. And wait, I want to say it right. Joe, I want to say it right. Just me, Joe D. Thank you. Harlot, thank you for my happy poop. I love it. I am like beyond right now. I'm like at a lack of words. So I appreciate all of you. Again, a special thanks to all the people that sent me the Jules, Harlot, Just Me, all of you today. And then Just Me for sending that super chat early on. That was amazing. I appreciate you so much. And then to Lucy Day for our 5 newest members. I love Happy Poops and members and super chats, of course, but Happy Poops and members get me like, just like I love goat trophies as well. Like, I'll take a goat trophy where, I'm just saying, but yeah, I'm not complaining. But you guys, for real, I do appreciate you. You have no idea. Thank you. You guys make me want to come back every night. Like, you really do. Not just for that, just like this, I almost said sisterhood, but we have some males in here too, right? So the camaraderie that we all have is exceptional. So thank you all. Thank you again to my mods. Thank you to everyone. I love you all. Have an amazing night, and let's see what happens. I don't know exactly if I'll be back tomorrow, but if I am, I'll see you here. So here you go. You're here whenever I want to go live. I love that about you guys. Thank you so much. Cuff you were missed again. You guys, we have to go earlier, or live earlier, because Cuff you, these grandchildren are really, they're making her keep up, right? I love it. Love it. So give those grandbabies a kiss, Cuff you, and thank you again. Hey, Deb, we're about to hang up, but you go back and rewatch because we had a really good live tonight. So thank you, everyone. Good night.